we had the chance to drive so many different opportunities for change and for values. The fear is in part about job displacement.
A lot of functions are being automated and replaced, and there's two kinds of people, one who are excited and one who are afraid of losing jobs.
Where we deployed large-scale digital chatbots so that every employee around the world, no matter what country, what time zone, what language you spoke, you could get HR support 24/7.
Okay, welcome, Kathryn, to the Change Story. I'm really excited for this episode, especially because your journey is nothing short of phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
So, for our guests, Kathryn has spent over 2 decades, even more than that, at IBM. While she started as a researcher, she gained 65 plus patents in that role itself. Imagine a young woman getting all that patents as she just started off her career. And then fast forward, Kathryn, you became the COO and helped IBM scale discovery and operational excellence across one of the world's largest leading research labs. And then finally, the role that is so impressive that as a CIO for IBM on a global scale, you led one of the most ambitious digital transformation projects that impacted over 250,000 employees worldwide. So it's amazing to have you, Kathryn. But I'll give you the mic to give your introduction because I don't think I can do justice as you could do.
From my whole career, I've been fascinated by innovation and really driving innovation at scale and trying to have impact in the business sense, impact on society and the world. And I've done that in a variety of different roles. I came to IBM as a scientist. I got my PhD in applied physics and started in the research lab, putting on a bunny suit and building semiconductor devices. And then over the course of my 24 years at IBM, I had the opportunity to take on a number of different roles from a product development leader through product management, launching new products into the market, driving operations, strategy. And then, as you said, my last role at IBM was as the global chief information officer, CIO, where I really had the broad purview of IBM's internal IT landscape, the applications, the infrastructure that runs the company, and not just running that, then thinking about how you transform it. How do you drive more value, efficiency, improve the productivity of the employees? And then importantly, how do you adopt IBM's own innovations, the technologies that the company is making around cloud and AI, and use those ourselves so that we could co-create and demonstrate the value and have impact on the company at scale.
Right. Amazing to hear that. And now you're also teaching students about technology and managing crisis. So both the ends of the story. You're teaching them innovation, you're teaching them transformation and crisis management in tech at Yale and Cornell. And you have recently started Inspiring Innovation Labs, Inspiring Innovation Consultancy, which we'll talk more about towards the end of the episode. So, Kathryn, just to start us off, right? You mentioned about your critical roles at IBM, and you were definitely part of some great transformation projects. Which ones were your top favorite ones?
Oh, it's like trying to choose your favorite child, which is impossible to do. But we had the chance to drive so many different opportunities for change and for value. So I'll highlight a few that have stuck with me. I think that were valuable to the company. We drove transformation in a number of domain areas. For instance, in the HR, human resources space, where we deployed large-scale digital chatbots so that every employee around the world, no matter what country, what time zone, what language you spoke, you could get HR support 24/7. And as a result, employees were able to get answers to their questions and actually action things, whether you were trying to drive a promotion or get information about your compensation statement or had questions that you needed to answer, you could get it anywhere, anytime in an automated fashion. And that was actually able to handle a huge fraction, over 94% of all of the queries from employees. And as a result, the staff in the HR team
Mm.
was freed up to engage on
Yeah.
more complex and interesting assignments, and employees around the world were able to get answers they needed in a timely manner in a higher satisfaction space. So that was one example. Another was around the sales transformation. We took over 140 different discrete applications across the portfolio, and that's not unusual. A large enterprise has been
Yeah.
around a long time, that has grown through acquisitions,
Yeah.
operates in all these countries. You often have a very complex and disparate environment. And
Yeah.
so what we did is took all of those and consolidated into one global integrated sales platform so that sellers and partners could all have visibility through dashboards and metrics to the entire sales pipeline. And that was able to free up sellers to spend their time engaging and supporting customers, not trying to search
Nice.
for data. It accelerated outcomes. It improved sales revenue. So those are just a couple of the domain areas. But if I just back up, all of those were possible because we were modernizing and transforming the infrastructure and the application space, looking at
Right.
the technical debt and opportunities to drive
Correct.
value.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And one theme that I've seen both of them is that you're moving people from being busy to being productive. You're taking them ahead from just doing that grunt work day in day out, serving that 9 to 5, into actually focusing on impactful stuff. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned these two projects, and in fact, there are very few companies who have a wiki page on their acquisitions, right? So IBM has been so impactful for the world, and I mean, for decades and decades, it has been there. And you happen to be in the part of that journey where the world was actually changing on the technology shift, right? So that whole web shift, and now seemingly there's another shift coming up with AI, and you're also a part of it. So I think your episode and your stories will be a big inspiration to many leaders who are at the forefront of that transformation. So there's one of the stories that you mentioned, right, where being the global CIO, you had to drive transformation across IBM, where you had 12,000 employees in that transformation. And I mean, first of all, 12,000 employees who are a part of that transformation, and that impacted 250,000 employees worldwide. So
Yeah.
the numbers are mind-boggling itself. Tell me a bit more about that, right? So it would have been very difficult and very challenging, but of course, to your feet, you accomplished with flying colors out of that. So tell me, how was it when you were assigned that problem statement, and what was the problem statement, and how did you structure it with yourself and your leadership team?
Yeah. As I said, I had played a number of different roles at the company before I took on the global CIO role. And so as a result, I came into the role having
Mm.
a network of leaders across the company that I had built some relationships with. I understood the IBM strategy and the product portfolio, so I came in with an understanding
Mm.
of that. I had global team leadership experience, not with quite as large a team, but I had led and built teams across the globe with varying skills. So those were sort of the
Yeah.
experiences that I draw on. But you're right, I came into this role and it was a very big and
Yeah.
challenging assignment, right? Large organization that I was leading, but probably even more importantly, a large organization I was supporting, right? The IBM
Yeah.
company has over 300,000
Correct.
employees around the world, does business in 175 countries of the world, is a dynamic, multifaceted business, hardware,
Correct.
software, services. There's a lot of complexity here. And not only were we responsible for supporting the infrastructure and the applications
Mm.
and ensuring cybersecurity and so on, but we were also charged with driving transformation, thinking about
Correct.
how do you advance, take costs out, accelerate outcomes, make our employees more productive, all of those
Hmm.
things while adopting our own technology, while being lead led.
Correct.
So in many ways, it feels like this impossible task. And at the
Yeah.
same time, it's actually what a tech company needs of its
Yeah.
technology. And technology is playing such a critical role across every company in every industry, not just tech companies.
Correct.
And so grappling with how do you tackle a challenge like that? So we really had to think through what are our priorities, what are our goals, what are our ways of working so that we can
Yeah.
start to chip away at this challenge. And first and foremost, it was we have to deliver reliable, secure IT services to employees and to the company so that the company can
Function.
that
Yeah.
can deliver on its promise, right?
Correct.
So aligning around that as sort of our primary function, right?
Correct.
To help companies succeed and grow.
Correct.
And then in addition, while the analogy of flying the plane and taking the engine out at the same
Yeah.
time and fix the ideas, like we had to do that. And then under the covers, look for those opportunities for
Hmm.
modernization and digital transformation and leveraging emerging technologies
Hmm.
like cloud and AI, but do so in a way that doesn't compromise the ability for the company to succeed and grow.
Yeah. Indeed. Indeed, that was flying the plane and fixing the engine as you go.
Mhm.
So there are multiple aspects that come to my mind. Like first and foremost, like what was the timeline in which you led this whole transformation? Like what year was this, and so that we have at least that
Yeah, I
understanding
took
of the era.
on I took on the role March 1st, 2021.
Yeah.
So it's almost a year into the pandemic. We were all
Wow.
still
Yeah.
fully remotely. So you
Hmm.
remember that time. It was a very challenging
Yeah.
environment, socially, economically,
Correct.
health wise. Everyone's still concerned about
Yeah.
the health crisis. And at the same time, we're we're seeing just an incredible opportunity with technologies like AI to drive
Yeah.
business value. So we had
Correct.
that sort of coming together and looking for opportunities for growth.
Yeah. Uh, so that's not even old, right? So that's not even like 2012 or something. It's 21. And now when you started this transformation and you have, of course, some pre-existing relationship with different departments, understanding of how the organization works, but still it's a large challenge. So let's tackle that problem, one by one. So first and foremost, let's understand about how did you define the strategy? Like, did you define the timeline, or was it required yesterday? Did you put in some value systems to drive that change? And then we'll come down to other tactical
Yeah.
steps that you took.
Well, when I took the role,
Hmm.
this was my first IT role. I've been in
Hmm.
technology for a long time, been in
Hmm.
product development, but I hadn't been on the IT side of the house.
Hmm.
So I had a lot to learn,
Hmm.
and I had to rely on deep technical experts and a outstanding leadership team that I
Yeah.
inherited, and then
Yeah.
additional leaders that I brought on to help us going forward. So surrounding yourself with really great
Hmm.
talent who can augment the areas that I didn't have as much expertise in, complement my skills, help us to identify opportunities and challenges. So that was a really critical component in terms of what and timeline. There was an aggressive challenge before us to help the company. Right, the company at that point was looking for opportunities to drive growth and productivity, and I'd say one of the biggest opportunities immediately that was clear is that IBM's own products, so the AI technology that's now known as Watson X, the hybrid cloud solutions like the Red Hat acquisition had enabled, all of that was designed for enterprise users, large scale environments, just like IBM's. And it became, it seems obvious now, but it was very clear at the time that IBM itself, that we needed to be an early adopter of our own technology. They call it, drinking your own champagne, eating your own cookies. But the idea was we needed to be in there very early, even as the technology was being created, developed, imagined, driving in requirements, co-creating with those development teams, deploying it at scale, IBM scale, which is large and global. Because if you imagine if it can work for a company like IBM at the size and scale and complexity of a company of its tenure, it could work for nearly any IBM customer in any industry in any geography. And so having the opportunity to do that meant really becoming a close collaborator with product development. It means taking some risks at deploying technologies that maybe were less mature than a large scale IT team would typically deploy, but that was in service of the company's goal was to demonstrate the value of these technologies at enterprise scale.
Wonderful. And while you were setting up this audacious goal and the vision was super clear, the challenges were laid out, how did you pick like the core pillars of this transformation? Like, how did you pick your leaders from more from a departmental sense on a tactical side, right? So who lead what and what kind of team did you appoint for driving this whole change?
As I said, I was fortunate to have some
Yeah.
really strong, capable leaders that were
Yeah.
part of the organization. I also identified a few gaps that we
Yeah.
needed to close, and in particular around the technical leadership.
Hmm.
And this is something that I've been a champion of for my entire career.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do really hard, technically challenging
Right.
activities like driving a massive digital transformation if you don't have depth of expertise, vision,
Correct.
those who have a really deep understanding of enterprise
Hmm.
architecture and the latest and greatest ways of working and enabling success. This cannot be an IT team that's a set of order takers that's asking the business what they want and then
Yeah.
delivering it. And I use this analogy of the short order cook versus the high-end catering manager. So there's an example of IT teams that do great work, but really act as order takers, right?
Correct.
They're tell me what you want, and I will deliver it to you, and I'll give you a
Hmm.
timeline and a bill, and you tell me if it's good enough, and if not, we'll keep working on it. And again, no criticism to those teams that operate in that way, but at a
Correct.
tech company, at a leading tech company like IBM,
Hmm.
that wasn't going to cut it, right? We needed to be out there championing the opportunities to identify ways of driving significant transformation and growth
Yeah.
and opportunities to leverage new technologies. And I needed really
Hmm.
strong technical leaders to do that. And not just at the leadership level, but we needed to then have a viable career path for
Hmm.
technical contributors that they saw that developing their expertise, becoming AI experts, understanding how to build microservices and modernize applications and know how to leverage the best of the different infrastructures, that was something I valued, that the team
Hmm.
valued, that they needed to build that expertise, and there would be opportunities for career growth and recognition
Hmm.
and opportunities for impact with that. So one of the talent focuses I had was on the technical community, revitalizing that community.
Hmm.
And to do that, I brought in some very senior people on my leadership team who are highly respected technical leaders who
Hmm.
had the credibility, the experience to be able to champion the kind of ambitious transformation that we were going after.
Wonderful. A lot of times when I'm in the startup circuit and they are looking at OpenAI's releases and how AI is seeing the world, every time they have this concern that, oh, what will the ISVs do, right? And your story is an example that ISVs have solved this problem already yesterday. They have solved this day before yesterday, and you were, of course, tooting the bull by their horns, right? So when you were driving this change, how are you drawing the baseline, right? How did you define where we are today? It's a complex problem because you're impacting at IBM scale. But when you do get your hands dirty, you have to go deeper and define the baseline for different areas. So, how do you define that? If there was any mental model or any school of thought, more scientific or more artistic, that you were using, which could be helpful for a leader who's in your shoes
Yeah.
today?
Yeah. I thought about what were those opportunities to drive value at the with the kind of metrics and impact statements that were relevant to our company. So the company's growth and business value is what I was trying.
Mm.
And if you align around helping the company to achieve growth and impact, then you can look for ways in which your team, whatever team, but in an IT sense here, we're looking at ways in which the technology that runs the company could be useful in driving that growth. And digital transformation is sort of an abstract term. Everyone
Yeah.
sort of knows it as new technology and streamlining operations, but it doesn't tell you. It's not a roadmap in and of itself. And so I looked at a few ways of achieving value. You can look at it from a technology lens, right? Opportunities for modernizing the technology. And for that, you might look at where do you have technical debt or technologies that's somewhat
Yeah.
outdated, might be brittle, might be unreliable, it may have
Mm.
security risk, may be more difficult to quickly update from a developer side. The user experience is typically not as good. So you identify those opportunities to drive a technology modernization story. And that's valuable, right? You
Mm.
might, and in the end, you likely can create a solution that has a better customer experience, user experience, developer experience. It's more reliable, it's more secure. So that's one lens, of course, that you can look at. I think a second lens is around end-to-end workflows. So if you look at an enterprise workflow, so take a hire to retire workflow, which is
Yeah.
like the entire talent management flow, from when
Mm.
you onboard a new employee to the compensation and promotion cycles
Mm.
and skills development, et cetera, performance management, that entire
Right.
workflow. We think about that from an end-to-end standpoint,
Mm.
streamlining it, not as a bunch of discrete tools or
Yeah.
processes, but building some intelligence into that. So you can
Mm.
streamline that, automate those processes,
Mm.
and build technology that more seamlessly allows you to hire to retire or lead to cash and so on from a
Yeah.
workflow perspective. I
Mm.
think that's the second lens. And then perhaps the most important lens is really from a business perspective, right?
Correct.
From a business driver perspective, what are the key pain points? What are the gaps? Maybe it's feedback from users, and we do
Mm.
measure net promoter score to get user
Mm.
feedback, or from a reliability or security perspective, like this is critical to the business, right? You look
Yeah.
at uptime, you look at unpatched vulnerabilities, you look at incidents of a
Mm.
breach or suspected problems in the infrastructure or in the application space, and you say, how can we tackle that? Right. And those are opportunities for savings or accelerating value.
Mm.
So all of those, and they're usually connected, right? The
Correct.
technology modernization, the workflow, and then this business lens. Hopefully, you then hone in on a few areas in which you can have the most impact and value to the business. And those are the things then you prioritize as you continue to focus on day-to-day operations, and then modernize your engine of your plane while you're flying it.
Yeah. Love it. And when you were driving the transformation, tell me one thing that you are really proud of that you did, which had the most impact according to you.
I'd say it's the people side.
Yeah.
Is that's the thing that I'm the most proud of. I do think the technical community, the technical excellence and the value and the
Mm.
appreciation for that is something that I thought was undervalued, and that was
Mm.
going to impede us from achieving the goals that we really wanted to go after. So that's something I'd say I'm proud of re-emphasizing,
Yeah.
or ensuring that was something that the teams would know is important to invest in and to
Yeah.
lead in a proactive, strategic, collaborative sense that this is what we're going after with technical excellence as the underpinning.
Yeah. And on the flip side, if you were to, so you did a safe landing and you fixed the engine, but in hindsight, if you were given a chance again, what would you do differently this time?
Early on in my time as the CIO, we were driving a modernization
Hmm.
effort, and we had a significant outage. So it's an
Yeah.
area that it's a time I look back, it was really,
Yeah.
really challenging. And we've all had those
Correct.
experiences. But this was one that was impactful, right? We took the email system of the IBM company
Yeah.
down for too long. And it was a real crisis internally. It created business disruption. It frustrated employees. It was all hands on deck
Yeah.
for our IT team. And we got through it, and in doing so, we learned a lot. We learned a lot about the importance of creating a culture of psychological safety where people could bring up their issues and their concerns and
Hmm.
raise their hand and say, I think we got a potential problem here.
Yeah.
Here's what we need to do to mitigate it. We put in some really important best practices after
Hmm.
this incident. So, anytime we're going into a potentially business disrupting event, we need to
Yeah.
have a pre-mortem. We need to be identifying risks and putting mitigation strategies. We need to do canary releases and
Yeah.
stage our rollout. We need to make sure we have a rollback plan. We need to do this in an
Yeah.
automated fashion. I mean, those are, I guess they're obvious, but they're not, in the sense that, when you have a large team and a large portfolio, you don't always have that top
Yeah.
of mind. And so as a result, we really became quite good at risk management and preventing or mitigating the likelihood of a crisis from happening. And as a result, I think our team was stronger. Right? We had a
Nice.
lot of this culture of
Yeah.
reliability and resilience built in.
Yeah.
But of course, in retrospect, I wish we never had to go through
Yeah.
that crisis, that challenge to get there. But I think
Yeah.
as a result, the team was stronger for it.
Wonderful. This reminds me of a time when I was slightly younger and I was working for a company called Maersk. I was in the engineering team, I was senior engineering manager, and I was leading a team which was trying to make, I was leading the reliability team basically. And we were doing all of these, technical canary deployments and everything. And then, there was an escalation in my name from one of the compliance departments, and they said that we have been chasing this employee to make a business continuity plan for the organization if something bad happens. And I was like, I'm building these pipelines and everything, and I was happy in my own world. And they said, what happens if you're unable to go to the office? What happens if this falls down? What happens if some earthquake happens, disaster? And I was like, I mean, then I don't know. I'll just take my laptop and run. But now I
Yeah.
realize how important is that. And
Right.
your story reminded me of that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And these single points of failure we talk
Correct.
about in designing engineering systems,
Yeah.
and in a server design, you may have if you have a single power supply or a single
Yeah.
processor, you can build in redundancy and automated failover and all sorts of best
Hmm.
practices. But you might have a person like you
Yeah.
who is that single point of failure. You might have a process
Yeah.
or and being very thoughtful, particularly when you're running enterprise systems, when you have customers and cross critical industries that are relying
Yeah.
on your technology, you can't afford to cut corners or not be really thoughtful and proactive. And that's what I discuss in my classes that I teach these days.
Yeah.
Is this is not typically taught in school, right? And the
Correct.
reality is, you learn it on the job, and too often you learn it when you hit a crisis or when you have a
Yeah.
failure, and then you have the scars to
Yeah.
teach you better. But in reality, what we want to be is proactive, where we want to
Yeah.
implement these best practices, thinking ahead of time about all the potential risks, not to slow down, right? Not to be so conservative that you're not launching
Yeah.
your new product, not deploying technology, of course. But you want to have your eyes wide open about
Correct.
what are the potential downstream impacts so that you can identify mitigation actions, and then where appropriate you deploy
Yeah.
them. You may say, I accept this risk. You may say there's nothing I can do to mitigate it, and given what
Yeah.
the needs of the business, we're going to go anyway. But at least you're very thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I try to tell my students, and that's what I tried to do.
Yeah, that kind of preparation is required when you're running any company, right? So now when
Yeah.
I'm running this company, I take care of so many different things, which in hindsight, I believe that I should have done while I was just leading a few engineering teams, right? So you mentioned about the changing times, and you have always, innovated in the areas where people were busy but not as productive. And now we are in this LLM era. So everyone is calling that AI era, but we both know that AI has been there for many more decades. Uh, but the LLM intervention has made it a household name. So in this
Yep.
LLM era, where a lot of functions are being automated and replaced, and there are two kind of people: one who are excited and one who are afraid of losing jobs. uh, and you have run, a large enterprise, right? One of the largest enterprises in the world. So now how do you look at that wave, let's call it the AI wave, reshaping organizations? How do you think it will it change the structure of how organizations are structured today? uh, is it removing some functions altogether? What's your opinion on the org, like the org structuring and
Yeah.
the ways of working?
I think there's so much excitement around
Yeah.
AI, as you say. It's not just AI in the traditional
Yeah.
sense, but what these new generative AI, large language models can
Hmm.
do. And after a number of years of this
Hmm.
frenetic experimentation, the last several years we've seen lots of mini experiments, but without a lot of tangible business
Hmm.
outcomes. I think we're now starting to see that enterprises are beginning to reap the benefits, some
Hmm.
of these promised rewards. And we're seeing some relevant use cases, smart contracting, customer support, streamlining of operations. We're starting to see that these
Hmm.
things are actually providing value to businesses. It's not just a bunch of hype,
Yeah.
but there's some real value. And as you say, yes, there's also fear, right? There's what will this mean? And the fear is in part about job
Hmm.
displacement. I do think it will cause some changes. That's been true of technology forever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, think about the move from typewriters to computers, right? You no longer had typists, but you now had administrative assistants who are able to do different
Correct.
types of high value tasks. So I see it less of eliminating and more of
Yeah.
transforming ways of working. I do think there's great promise for eliminating some of the more manual, boring, repetitive
Yeah.
tasks, which is to
Okay.
me a great, exciting
Yeah.
opportunity of trying to allow us all to do things that are more thinking and creative,
Yeah.
and opportunities for doing meaningful human led work.
Yeah.
But I don't think the technology is is taking over in the sense that it's not going to autonomously decide on your business plan and your strategy and your
Yes.
product portfolio and create. So the opportunities to partner effectively between humans who have these great ideas and these
Yeah.
opportunities to lead teams and inspire and empower the
Yeah.
workforce, which is so important,
Correct.
but to then couple that with what tremendous value that these AI systems can bring to make sense of
Yeah.
complex informations, to summarize, to automate, to accelerate, I think
Yeah.
there's tremendous opportunity. And I do think we're still early days in terms
Yeah.
of seeing the value.
Yeah.
And I'm more optimistic than I am
Yeah.
concerned. Although I put the guardrails, the thoughts around responsible use, right? I want to see that we're being really thoughtful about
Yeah.
how we deploy our
Hmm.
AI systems, how we train it with appropriately diverse data sets, ensuring that we're not using it to perpetuate biases, but to actually eliminate them. I think there's great opportunity that comes from that, but we need to embrace the technology. We need to look
Yeah,
for those opportunities for real value.
I agree. I agree. I'm on the same boat as you, and I look at it from a more optimistic lens, right? Because earlier there was, if you see programming, right? So earlier there was, as you gave the example, right? So on programming there was binary, then assembly came in, then high level languages came in, and now simpler languages. People were writing C++, and then Python came in, and then more people could code. And now with LLMs, even more people can code. So now we are actually realizing that it's a people business. People interact with people. And earlier it seemed to be that, oh, if you are a programmer or if you are a particular individual contributor in a job, you are going to just impact it. But now you're absolutely right. There's room for more creativity, which only humans can bring in. The other thing is that people, in their excitement, they think that every kind of job is similar, and there's a utopian sci-fi vision where a bot will come and do everything and replace, and there'll be a rage. But most of the things that we do in business, most of the things that we call creative, are non-deterministic things.
Right.
We don't know what will work and what won't work. We can only do experiments, right? When we are running or when we are looking to impact any value. So while LLM can, ease up the deterministic work, which is great because who likes mundane work? And everyone can now engage in the non-deterministic work, and more people can do it. So I think the jobs will increase with this era. So, Catherine, tell me one thing, right? So, we at Middleware, we are a software delivery intelligence company, and we see our synergy quite deeply with digital transformation. In fact, we have a lot of customers who are undergoing that whole process. So, we call ourselves the feedback loop for their digital transformation. So, now, what would you guide us on? What would you recommend us uh, to do better to ease up that digital transformation journey, right? What do you think are the most important areas for the top leadership while they are running this transformation uh, from a data and intelligence point of view? What should we focus on more?
I think you've actually just hit on it. I think it's identifying those bottlenecks, those pain
Yeah,
points, those friction points in the system, whether it's in the code development, the
yeah,
deployment. Often it's in the integration of
yeah,
multiple systems. Because our environments are complex, right? It
correct.
is almost no company out there that has one system that they need to
Yeah,
everyone can log into and see, right? We often have these really disparate environments. Some are
mm,
homegrown, some are third party, some are scalable platforms, some are in different geographies. So the challenge is, how do you develop, deploy, update, and ensure that you've got reliable, secure, scalable solutions
yeah,
that meet the needs of your business? And to do that, in order to leverage technology, leverage AI, I think it's a
yeah,
really exciting space. The idea of democratizing development, of enabling a
yeah,
much wider swath of our communities to be engineers, to be
yeah,
innovators, to be developers, I think that's really exciting. And actually, it causes all of us to think about, how do we step up our game? How do we redefine what's possible? How do we reimagine what we can do in our business? And with some of the new tools and technologies that are available, I think that opens tremendous opportunity for all of us.
absolutely, absolutely. And you were in one of your stories. You also mentioned how you were looking at things end to end. How was the value flowing from, let's say, lead to dollar, and different from hire to retire kind of journeys. And similarly, we also look at from plan to execution, right? From plan to build and plan to deploy. And so yeah, so using AI, it helps us make sense. So, like, looking at just data is quite boring for people. It is again mundane. But when technology looks at different aspects of these stages, because programming doesn't happen on one stage, while people might imagine so, but it happens on different stages, and defining bottlenecks really helps them out. So tell me more about your new venture. I'm excited to learn more about it. What are you doing with Inspiring Innovation LLC? I mean, the words are
Yeah,
inspiring innovation. I'm guessing you're inspiring more innovation, but what exactly do you do with it?
I'm trying to do that. So when after I left IBM, I've done a number of different things, including teaching, as we talked
Yeah,
about, because helping to inspire this next generation of innovators, giving some of the tools that the preparedness that maybe I wish I had before getting into some of these
yeah,
leadership roles, and helping them to be prepared to take on really exciting opportunities in the tech and the business world. So that's been one aspect that I've been
yeah,
passionate about. I've also been working with a variety of different leaders and companies on
yeah,
thinking through how does technology and transformation, what does it mean for their businesses in
mm,
different types of industries. And so I decided to launch this LLC that I called
yeah,
Inspiring Innovation, really the intent to help organizations navigate change, to embrace emerging technologies, to think about how do you drive this topic of digital transformation and
correct.
responsible innovation in their own spaces. And as we said, there are some best practices, some tools, some guidance, but sometimes it's just about inspiring the teams to know
Yeah,
that they have permission, that they can embrace this
correct.
themselves. And I do think that, giving, whether it's giving talks and engaging in corporate workshops, helping to allow some tools and sort of open their ideas to the opportunities, or to actively
Yeah,
consult and help to build a transformation agenda. Those are the
yeah.
things that I'm engaging with this new venture.
Wonderful. And as the companies get larger, there are more protectors than innovators. So it's very important to change that mindset, especially in the middle management. That their whole mindset is to protect what we have, and that stops innovation. So that mindset shift is very important. And who should reach out to you so that we can encourage more and more people to come and have a chat with you?
Yeah, I would love to hear from anybody who's interested in these
Yeah,
topics. So business leaders, technology leaders, up and coming innovators, so entering
yeah.
the workforce and are looking for opportunities to drive innovation and growth. You can reach me on LinkedIn, or I have a new website for my venture. It's called inspiringinnovation.org.
Wonderful. And we'll also drop in all the links. And there are some wonderful posts which are kind of short guides that Kathryn has written. So we'll put them all down in the description. So please do check them out and follow Kathryn and follow us on YouTube. Yeah, thank you so much, Kathryn, for your time today. And it was wonderful to go through such amazing stories and looking at from your lens there's a lot of nuance while it looks effortless, right? So that's what I really liked about it, that you had such a strong grip while you were doing it, and that grip also was visible in your stories. So I wish there are more leaders like you. So thank you so much for giving us time today.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I enjoyed the conversation.
All right.